my guest on today's episode is Brit Kolo, the founder of marketingpersonalities.com. And honestly, this website is so cool. If you have a business or have friends that have businesses, you've got to get out there to her website and find your best marketing strategy based on your Myers-Briggs personality type. So that's not exactly what we're talking about today, but it kind of is why it's such a cool business for Brit in particular. Brit and I are biz besties. So that's a legit thing. It's a category of people, okay? She is in my mastermind group, and I get to hang with Brit every single day if I want. And you should be jealous because she's so rad. What we're talking about today specifically is about personality type in part, but it's also just about Brit's whole philosophy towards life, that we live our best life when we show up as we really were meant to be and honor who we really are, not who we think we're supposed to be based on what everybody else tells us we should do, or, all of the other influences that can take us away from who we really are. And today we're talking about all of that in the context of being in a small town and how hard it can be. One of the things that all women talk to me about, I swear, living in small towns, the impediment to living big in a small town is the fear of what everyone else is going to say. Brit and I tackle that and so much more. I loved this talk show episode, and you will too. So here's really the reason that, the thing that we're talking about today is kind of figuring out how to find the courage to be yourself and just really embrace who you really are in your small town. So little backstory for the listeners, and then even for you. One of the things I talk about in one of my keynotes is about being bold, okay? And bold isn't for me, I reframe it, that it's not about this big, audacious, crazy, awesome personality. It's about being full strength you. So I equate it to bold coffee. Bold coffee is full strength. When we can figure out how to be full strength us, we show up better. We say yes to the right things. We say no to the wrong things. The people we attract, all of it gets better, right? And in your business, you have taken such a cool, so obviously I've known you now for over a year. We're in a mastermind group together through Kick-Ass Masterminds. Little plug for our friend Sarah. And right, I know, always got to plug Sarah. Your business is you've adapted this whole model into helping people market their small businesses based on their personality type, specifically the Myers-Briggs. So we'll talk about that a little bit and how that influences your viewpoints. But ultimately, I adore you because you constantly affirm that Rebecca Undum is good enough as she is. And you constantly... Thank you. You constantly encourage me to do that. So I would love to hear, and I think about the women that are going to be watching this. This is going to be such an encouraging episode. At least truly that's my hope. I would love to hear how you got to this being kind of your thing. Your jam is helping people be themselves. I mean, what were the guideposts along the way as you were growing up? Anything that feels relevant to kind of how this became your thing, because it's totally your thing and you're brilliant at it.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to take you all the way back.
Oh,
all right. I'm going to take you all the way back
Yep.
to me as a 5-year-old in a Kmart. You wait for it. Okay. Kmart dressing room. Okay.
Okay.
When I was 5 years old, and I've been doing this is coming up because I've been doing a lot of soul searching about this, why this, what is pulling me here? And I'm working on my own keynote. And so, writing a book, anything like that, you got to go back. You got to dig deep, and you got to find those stories that have always been there, kind of underlying the surface. And I really identified this is where it started. 5 years old, Kmart dressing room, trying on bathing suits. Okay. Yeah. All right. Here we are. Yeah. I was the I'll call chunkiest little girl in my class from the time I was born, forever, till about 6th, 7th grade. Okay. So 5 years old, Kmart dressing room, trying on these bathing suits. They did not fit. But in those moments, I'm bawling. My mom keeps bringing more to me, and I'm just they just don't fit. They just don't work. And that turned into, I don't fit. I don't fit. It wasn't the bathing suit's fault. It was my fault. And at 5 years old, that was the story that started to play in my head. And so I continued on. It was very much in those younger years, it was very much about body and like how I didn't fit into clothes. And then it became, all right, I fit into clothes, but then I tried to fit into everything. I tried to fit into every friend group and every single thing that I could possibly do in high school. So I was like, president of student council and head cheerleader and A student and top 10 in my class, like everything, and all the friend groups, I wanted to fit into all of them. And luckily, that kind of all came crashing down, and I realized that's actually not possible, and you are literally just trying to be everything to everyone.
When did you
realize
realize that?
I started to realize.
Okay, college.
Yeah, it was really my senior year of high school. A lot of my friends were a little bit older than me, so by the time I got to senior year, a lot of them had moved on, and I was still in high school. And I realized that I was trying to literally be everything, and I couldn't keep it up anymore. I got into the school that I wanted to get into. I was still getting all the good grades. That was still very much part of my identity, but I was totally broken. Like inside, I was just like, this is not working. This is not working. I don't want to be this person anymore. This is not cool. I got through the rest of my senior year of high school, and like day by day, moment by moment, just like gritting my teeth, hating every moment of it. And then I got to college. I went to Penn State University, a huge school. So I went from tiny little town, like we haven't really talked about this, but tiny little town, still live there today, but tiny little town.
How many
graduated with,
there you go. Yeah.
Yeah, I graduated with 92 in my class.
Okay.
So, and then I went to Penn State University, over 40,000 people on campus, not in the town, just on campus. And so big eye opener. And I realized, well, heck, I'm not going to be able to fit in everywhere. So I better choose. Like, I guess I got to choose. And for 2 years, I was kind of nobody, which was really fun for me. It was really fun because forever I was like, in a small town, everybody knows you, everybody knows your business, everybody, like, you're just known. You cannot be anonymous. And I got to Penn State and I got to be anonymous for a little while. Yep. Like, hey, this is a really great break. It's one of my favorite things to be anonymous in a place now, because Penn State just totally allowed me to do that. And then later in college, I just kind of just went with the flow. I wasn't creating any kind of identity for myself. It was just like, whatever, I'm just like getting through it, having fun. And then I got into my first job out of college. I was the youngest, right? I was the youngest. I was super green, thought I knew stuff, but didn't really, and I was brought under the wing of my boss, and he was a really self-aware, such a great leader. And I started emulating his leadership style, and it didn't work for me. It didn't work for me. I tried to emulate. I tried to, okay, this is what he does. I'm going to do it that way too. And it didn't work. I struggled so hard. And that was really the moment now, like in adult life, where I realized, wait a second, I can't just parrot people, because I think I have stuff to say here, and I'm saying it, but I'm saying it in the way that I think he would say it, like my boss would say it, and these other leaders in the company would say it. That's just it's not landing. It's not working. People don't care. Like, people aren't listening to me. I'm trying to lead. It's not working. That's when I started listening to leadership podcasts, business podcasts, and then eventually marketing podcasts, that I started recognizing that there were other ways to do things, that I could kind of pick and choose and play around with things. And I started identifying that, hey, this might not be the way that the other leaders in the company do this, but I just experimented with it for like a week and it worked really well for me. So there must be something to this becoming self-aware, putting into play what actually feels good and right to you, and having it actually work. That's when it really took hold. Then I went on a crazy path of quitting my job, starting my own business, trying to like experiment all over the place to see what works for me. And now we're here with Marketing Personalities, which connects someone with their best marketing strategy based on their personality types. They don't have to do all of the things in marketing, and they don't have to just parrot what everybody else is doing. They get to choose what feels good for them, because when you show up in a way that feels good to you, the right people are attracted to that. That's what's actually going to work.
Right.
So that's the story. There we are. And so then you can fit into what you're actually supposed to fit into and not feel like you're not enough and that you don't fit into the world of whatever world you're trying to be a part of.
Okay. So many things that I want to.
So many. I know.
I want to come back to. First of all, thank you for sharing that, because there are always those stories. They're always there that have built the story that we're holding on to as adults. And it is painful, but it is cathartic. It's important to do that work. Like you said, dig deep, look back, try to figure out, when did this become my thing? And is it actually true for me? Right? Which so important. Writing my book, it did a lot of that for me. And I still struggle with some of the things like achievement orientation, which is something just like, I'm an achiever. Ultimately, I'm hustling for gold stars. That's like, give me validation. Tell me I'm pretty. Tell me I'm good. Tell me. Like, that's core part of something I struggle with. But ultimately, I feel like what you're helping me every day, as somebody that I interface with you in one way, shape, or form just about every day, which, praise the Lord, I have you in my life. But I think what you're helping me and everybody that you work with, you're helping us distinguish the difference between fitting in and belonging.
Oh, yeah.
Because there's an enormous difference, right? The fact that, like, if I'm all, and then when you're young, like when you're in high school, especially in a small town. So I graduated with 47. So small, right? Like, I get this. All you're trying to do is not stand out enough that you're weird. And that's fitting in. Right? So you shave edges, or you dull your sparkler. There's all different types of euphemisms, right, for what that looks like. But it's legitimately just like you're trying to be everything to everyone, because all 47 of you, or 92 of you in your case, you have your own things. Like, you have things you like and things you care about, but we're just not developed enough to know that it's okay to actually explore those things, right? So you're just like, we're going to all try to fit in and carry on. And then you get to this point where that nothing that you've attracted into your life feels real, because it didn't come to you because of an authenticity that you were giving out, right? It's artificial in some way, whether it's the people in your life, the clothes you're wearing. I mean, then it's like posing. Does that resonate for you? Because that's how I feel. And I still fall prey to it sometimes, where I'm like, I'm thinking more about what the other people are going to think or feel about whatever it is I'm looking at, versus what do I really want to do. And a lot of times my trigger is smartness, like being like, what seems smart, especially from a business, like owning a business. You and I, you've helped me so much with that, because, even our mastermind group, we've got all these different people with all these different personalities, different backgrounds, different skill sets. And when you take a problem to them, you're going to get all of your problem filtered through all of their individual experiences, which is great, right? They can show you. Valuable. They can show you blind spots that you don't see because they're just not even on your radar. But then for somebody like me, sometimes I can end up being like, oh, but okay, so I should do it like that. And then I might go down that path and it doesn't feel good because it's not for me, and you're always the one like, okay, Rebecca, like you'll vox me and be like, Rebecca, I just want to talk to you and speak some truth over you. And I'm always like, oh my God, I'm so thankful that you do that, because seriously, and that's just business. I mean, we're talking about all areas of life, right? Like, for the love, parenting. Let me just say, parenting is a minefield for this kind of behavior for women in particular, right? It becomes competition and you don't even know why you're competing, but you know damn well that you want the gold star and you don't even know, right? And that's all fitting in and not belonging. So sorry, I went on a rant, but it's so important. Like what you're talking about is so, so, so important.
Yeah, you're so right. And I haven't gotten to the motherhood part yet. I'm sure that's a whole other bag. But you're right in that, we grow up, whether, maybe you grew up in a small town, maybe you've been planted into a small town, you grew up somewhere bigger, but we still, when we're young, we learn that we're safe by fitting in. We become unsafe when we stand out.
Right.
And that's not a problem. That's part of our biology that keeps us safe, that keeps us safe within the community so we can be protected, especially as a small child, even into adolescence. You go a little too far outside of that community and that safety zone, you could really be in a lot of hurt, like a lot of trouble. So we learn this, and I definitely watch kind of the arc of my own story, and I see that I realized this stuff, this individual self-awareness magic that was happening even at 17, but I didn't have life experience or the support yet to be able to own that. And so then I had another, oh gosh, like 7-8 years of just kind of bumbling around. And instead of trying to fit everywhere, I just didn't fit anywhere. Like I just don't, like whatever, I just don't fit anywhere. And then eventually I got to a place where I had the wherewithal, the maturity, and the support to realize, hey, I'm failing at my job. I'm literally failing at my job. And yes, as an achiever, like that failure does not feel good. As a human, the failure doesn't feel good. I'm failing at my job. I have to figure something out. And eating myself up about it is not working. And so I gotta find something else. And that's when I came to become self-aware enough to find what actually works for you. And once you can step into that, once you allow yourself to step into that, confidence doesn't happen right away. But if you have the courage to step into who you are, the way you were meant to show up in the world, what you were supposed to bring to the world in the first place, that purpose that was always there, little bit of courage, after that comes confidence, because you start to realize, you open yourself up to, wait a second, I'm actually not alone. I'm not alone here. I do belong here in this world, in this culture, in this society, because I have some real value that I wasn't allowing myself to have before. It was always there, but eventually you have to come to a place where you allow yourself to live out that value. And when you do that, you realize, I do belong here, because belonging is tethered to purpose. And you can start to see that purpose come into a little bit clarity, right? Just a little bit more clear than before. You take a couple more steps into that self-aware, like, this is who I am. Oh, it gets a little bit more clear. Okay, this is why I'm here. And that realization of this is why I'm here equals belonging. So it's no longer about fitting in, status quo. And honest, I don't think, if you're watching this right now, you're probably not somebody that really loves status quo, because you're all about living this big life regardless of where you are. So you're probably not super cool into the status quo. We're talking about stepping into your true power.
Right.
And that creates belonging here on earth.
Right. And it's all about, like, so I love Brene Brown. I mean, I don't know. I don't actually know anybody that doesn't, because I don't understand what you would have to, like, what would be your problem? But she talks about belonging to yourself. That's ultimate belonging, and that's what we're talking about, because it's it's letting go of the doubt and the belief that somehow you're still not quite enough, or that somehow your value or your gifts aren't special, aren't unique, aren't needed, aren't wanted, aren't valued. All of those things, the self-worth stuff. Once you get to this place, and like you said, you allow yourself to just be who you really are, then your value isn't dependent upon other people. And it is not dependent upon what you do. You have it because it's inherent, and it's inherently yours. And like, I get a lump in my throat saying that out loud because it's such an incredible thing. And I want everybody to experience that. And I think a lot of us, if we're awake at all, you have flashes of it, right? Where things feel so good and so easy, and you feel so in the flow. And then you just think, what? If you're not sure, you're like, what the hell was that? But that was amazing, you know? And the whole goal is just to get more to that place where you can really rest in it. Like surrender to.
That is so much it.
Right?
Yeah, that is so much it. It's such a surrendering, because I you know, when we're talking marketing, I can guide someone, just go to the website. I tell you what your best strategy is based on your personality type, but it also goes like way wider and way deeper than that when we're just talking about life in general. So somebody might be thinking as they're listening to this, like, okay, this is cool, but like, what do I actually do? How do I show up and feel good and step into my power? I don't even know what any of that actually means, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think you just said it. You don't have to go find it. Right. There's literally nothing you have to go find or figure out about who you are. You must give yourself the space to observe and receive what's already there.
Mm-hmm.
There's no fabrication. You don't have, and that's the thing about fitting in. You're fabricating a story to do it.
Right.
And belonging is coming home.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and not every home is like this. And I'm sorry that that's the case. But if you have a current or past healthy home life, I think about like going to my parents' house. When I go to my parents' house, there's literally, I don't have to think about, oh, should I put makeup on? Nobody cares.
Right.
Like, there's no fabrication. Like, oh, should I kind of do my hair? Like, my hair's been in a ball cap for 3 days straight. Like, should I maybe? That never crosses my mind.
Right.
Never, because they don't care.
Right.
They could not care less. And that's the feeling of stepping in and owning yourself, what's already there. It's already a safe space. You just have to choose to get quiet and surrender to it. There's no creation, there's no fabrication needed.
Right. And that is such, oh, Brit, I'm so happy you're sitting here with me. I mean, I knew it was going to be good because I know you and I know the value that you bring to the world. But I just think, I mean, this is the core of like my keynote message. This is a huge part of what I talk to women about because, and actually, so this next weekend when I go to these 2 events, we're going to talk about hustling, the true hustling for approval. You know, like if I do the right things or I say the right things or I wear the right things or I fix my hair the right way or I date the right boys or I parent all of the right things. That is an external search for something that can only be found in here. Mm-hmm. Like the value that you have to impart, you're never going to find it through all of those things. And sometimes I think we just distract ourselves with all of those activities so that we don't have to do the hard work of coming home. I love the analogy of coming home, but I've often even just said, you know, coming back to yourself. Like there should be an implied ease with it, right? Like you said, there's no second guessing. There's no questioning. That's what home feels like to you. You know, like you said, I don't go, like, are they going to judge me that I'm not? No, of course they're not going to judge you that you're not wearing makeup. They don't care. Like, because your value isn't imparted through your face or through your hair. Like all of this, none of this actually matters at all. When I think about for women, going back to your painful experience as a little girl. I mean, Brindley, my daughter will be 5 this fall. Like, scares the crap out of me to even imagine that someone that young would have such an awareness of, I don't belong here or I don't fit. Oh, but I mean, this is real, right? So I can say I wish it wasn't, but it is. If you remember me sharing when we were in Costa Rica earlier this year, all the women that came up to me and commented about how they weren't comfortable standing in a swimsuit. Do you remember us kind of having that conversation? And it's like, if you are bright and shiny and delightful to be around and you make me laugh and we joke, I am not looking at anything physically in your being. Like, you know, people create a feeling for me, and suddenly we're judgmental people, unfortunately. Like, we probably do that from afar to some degree, but like, your being and your aura will overtake everything I see physically. And so it just always makes me so sad that as one, it's just women really struggle with it because society sucks, I think, sometimes. And it puts, puts these feelings and these images of what perfection and beauty and all of that is. And then we get super wrapped up in trying to achieve that. And again, that's not belonging. That's a hustle.
Right. Yeah.
It's exhausting.
I keep thinking of, there's a quote that I've seen a couple of times, and it's come up in recent conversations too. It's like, if you're wondering, okay, how do I actually apply this? How do I live in the place I live, my small town, wherever you're living? How do I live as myself and do that courageously and hoping that, one day I find confidence in that? Because I don't think that they could happen simultaneously, but I don't think that's usually how it works. It's usually like a step of courage, and eventually you do that enough and you gain some confidence in it. And I really think it's trying to remember who you were before external sources told you who you were.
Stripped it away.
And it's the same thing. It's such a parallel I see between owning your personality, who you are as a human, and the body reference, like how we view our bodies as well. It's very much the same thing. Who you are is in there, and to find it, you must strip away all the things that are not actually you. And so when we're talking about, living your best life, no matter where you are in the world, give yourself the gift of sitting down and really considering, like, if all of this stuff around me didn't exist, who would I still be? What would I still want to do? What would I still want to eat? Where would I still want to go? Like, what would I still want to read, right? And so those types of questions, they might seem kind of like, are you nuts? But really, those types of, we don't ask those questions. In a day-to-day life. We don't often ask those questions. And when you can come home to that, you can start stepping into it. The realization of those things can help you, even if you're not trying really hard, can help you make those subconscious decisions that you need to make to actually step into who that person is, like really owning it. And over time, that's who you become. And with as you do it, you become more confident. So later down the line, when you may to other people have kind of like stuck your head up, like the tall poppy syndrome, like you've kind of become the tall poppy, or you've become different, you don't care anymore.
Right.
Because you become confident step by step.
Right.
In who you are. So it's just irrelevant. It doesn't matter.
Right. Yeah. I know. And that's the part that, and also I think to that whole analogy of the one small step of courage forward, and then how that builds and builds and builds until, like you said, you become so confident that once other people are really tuned into your development and they feel triggered by it, jealous of it, envious of it, they think you're too big for your britches, all the things that people say when we step up into who we really are, you just don't care anymore. But what I think, obviously, we want to protect ourselves from pain. This is what we do, right? So it is so much easier, like easier, air quotes, to just say, okay, but that sounds like a lot of work, you know, because we want to circumvent that judgment, and we want to try to like get around it somehow. But the judgment that other people place on us as we're progressing, like if it happens along the way, that has zero to do with us.
Right. Exactly. It's none of our business.
It's never,
literally none of our business.
It's never about us. And that's the hardest thing, I think, for all of us to kind of grasp, especially in a small town where it's like a petri dish, right? Like I'm in here doing my thing and you all can see me and you feel like you're very under a microscope a lot of times.
Oh,
but
100%.
ultimately, yeah, I mean, and I think too, like the other thing that happens as you start to do that and you ask yourself tough questions, and like you said, you start to say, what things am I wearing that don't belong to me? What have I taken on that is somebody else's thing or perception or belief about me that isn't really mine to carry around anymore? Right. Once we do that, like you said, the right people come our way, the right opportunities come our way, our world opens up for us. And then that even builds the confidence, right? The confidence comes even more because you're like, this is what it feels like. And when you finally have people that are truly for you because they see you and they honor you, that it makes it even easier to look at the ones that don't get it and don't approve, to go, meh. So go ahead and feel that way. All these people who really see me, honor me, and love me for it. And that's the other thing. I just think people don't realize that that's a progression that happens when you can get to that place, like where you're pretty confident about, or certain anyway, of what your value is, where you need to live. Everything expands. And that's like, expansion is the way I want to live, right? In an expansive way, not in a shrinking way, to stay protected and safe, but open-hearted.
Exactly. You know, one of my favorite questions, I've got like a pretty sassy inner voice. Right. She like knows what's up. So like and I spend a lot of time with her, right? Because she's in my head. So one of my favorite questions that my inner voice loves to ask me as I'm, you know, in these moments, you know, we're talking kind of big picture, but in these moments where,
do you got a for instance there, Britt?
I'm trying to think of a
can
really
you land on just one example?
Yeah. Oh man, they're everywhere, right? I guess. Well, this kind of seems a little silly, but it's still so relevant. Because we could go big.
The sillier the better, because we have been very big picture. So yeah, if you can.
Yeah. Well, okay. So I've been learning like what I actually want to wear lately.
This isn't silly at all.
For the longest time. Okay. So for the longest time, and well, now that I am saying it out loud, I'm like, oh, well, duh, because you're always trying to fit in your clothes. And that was always, as I was growing up, like I had to wear what everybody else was wearing. It didn't necessarily need to be like on brand, like the brand name or whatever. I didn't care about that, but I had to make sure I looked like everybody else. Well, and I'm realizing now, and this has been a recent thing, like within the past 6 months, I've been identifying like, I don't like the clothes in my closet. I don't really like, why did I buy this stuff? Like, I don't really feel that great. And then I started experimenting with just grabbing something that didn't seem like something that someone where I lived would wear. Okay, does that make sense? Like, it's not, I don't see other people wearing this around in my small town, but I like it. I like it. So you know what? I'm going to buy that online. I'm going to get it. I'm going to see how it feels. I'm going to wear it to like the next time I go somewhere fun, like a city, see how it feels. Oh, damn, I feel really good in this.
Yeah.
And I wear it here now, right? Like in my small town, and it's just who I am. So it's this progression of that. Now, my favorite question that my inner voice likes to ask when she's getting a little sassy. So in the moment where I've worn this new piece of clothing, like out, like when I go to the city or something, but I haven't worn it around here yet.
Right.
And I start to think, well, like, I don't know, like, is it a little too fancy? Is it a little too fancy? This isn't a runway show here, right? Like that, my inner voice starts to try to keep me, or my inner critic tries to keep me safe. This is a little too fancy. And my inner voice goes, really? You're going to let who dictate what you wear? Or you're going to let who dictate what you say? You're going to let who dictate where you go? And the answer is always like something super ridiculous.
Right.
Like I'm going to let random strangers at the grocery store dictate what I wear today. Like, who cares? Yeah. Right? That's one of my favorite questions that comes up. And then once you pose it to yourself, it's like, oh yeah, I can just wear whatever the heck I actually want to wear.
Right. So what I love about your inner voice, like the who, I think that's a really important question. Honestly, we all should be asking ourselves, because it's the implication of that is that there's somebody outside of me whose opinion matters more than mine about what I'm wearing. That makes it, when you get down to the nitty, like you're like, well, that's stupid. And so it is.
Yeah.
I mean, as much as we're talking about feelings here, this is also a rational process. You know, it's like, if you get right down to it, it's just like, do you actually think that the opinions of random strangers at the grocery store should matter more about you, or about, than you, about what you're going to put on your body? Does that actually make sense to you? And as soon as you say it, you'll be like, oh, this is dumb. And then you'll put on the damn shirt or whatever it is that you're fretting about. But I think that's a super valuable tip. I really do. And I love that. That's where she goes. Like, really? I love the really. It has to be there, right? Like, really?
I know, she gets so sassy. Yeah, well, and even if the answer isn't random strangers, it's actually someone you literally know.
Yep, you love or care
and
about.
You love. You might consider it a little bit more, but with the practice, with like really absorbing everything we've been talking about and starting to think about it, even if the answer is somebody that you know, you still have the option to be like, and the way I decide on this still is me. I can still make this decision.
Right.
And it's just, you can face, you almost like face the judgment, the perceived judgment preemptively, so you can just get past it. Instead of just getting stuck in like, oh, I might be judged, so I'm going to pull back. Oh, I might be judged, I'm going to pull back. No, just face it head on. And it's like, you just jump right over it, I feel like.
Right. I love it. I love it so much. And I love that you were like, this is a silly example. It's not, though. I mean, it's a simple example. It's simple and, very basic, because not everybody thinks that hard about what they're going to put on every day. But I do often, not every single day, but especially if it's a shirt. I mean, it's really funny. I had this event at my house. This was like 5 years ago. And I bought this really kind of crazy vest. It's actually very cute. And my friend that was like, oh my God, she said, you should totally buy that, but just don't wear it around here. That's like totally a thing, and I have worn it here. Thank you very much. And I felt awesome in it, but it's just funny, right? Like it's a thing. And if we do that with clothing, you damn well know we do it with the big things, like stepping out and,
totally.
All of it, starting a new business. And like I said to you, motherhood for me triggers a lot of this stuff. I can just give you a super simple example. So just yesterday, 2 days ago, we had parent teacher conferences. And as soon as you get feedback that your kid is anything other than perfectly stellar, right? They're learning. And I mean, it's like rationally, I get this. But as soon as I hear it, I think, oh God, I'm not as good of a mom as I could be, right? And it's all about how their behavior reflects on me as the mom. It's so, and it just constantly brings up all the stuff that you felt like you put to rest. So this, what I really want women to hear us too, as we're talking about this, is that this evolution, we never completely out evolve our struggle. I don't believe, like, as you grow, then new things unlock, and stuff that you never considered before will come up. And it's just getting in a space where, or like a place where becomes practice for us. Mm-hmm. Right? Because when we feel, then we can kind of eliminate feeling triggered. And that's, I mean, I say that word, a lot of people hate that word, but I'm like, that's how I feel. I get literally flooded with emotion, you know, if it's something really strong. And that's when that is my signal, like, ooh, there's something going on here, and what is it, and why am I feeling this way, and where did this come from? So I mean, this is like a practice that I think we have to keep doing for our whole lives, especially if you've got a business and you continue to succeed, either financially or in kind of publicity. People start to get to know you. I mean, new things are going to continue to unlock, and that's why this becomes practice, not just something you do once and like, done. I belong to myself now. Done. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. It's totally a practice. I think, I mean, I guess that there are people out there in the world that simply want to maintain things. Mm-hmm. I am not one of those people. You are not one of those people.
No.
Like,
correct.
No, like we are here to progress. Like, and I know that there are people that are here to just like defend and maintain and keep, hold. Great. I love you guys.
Right.
Cool. Because Rebecca and I can kind of be roller coasters sometimes. So if you're going to be over there being stable, awesome.
Yeah.
But for us,
thanks.
Yeah, great, cool. I'm just going to outsource that to you. But for us, we want to progress and we want to grow. And if that is you, then everything you're doing to realize and experience that better version of yourself that you envision, every single thing is a practice. Mm-hmm. You do not check off boxes when you're becoming the best version of yourself.
Right.
You walk through it initially, you learn a lot, and then you continue walking through that always.
Right.
Period. Like always.
Right.
So yeah, it's totally a practice. And I mean, I like my business is all about self-awareness and marketing in a way that feels good for you. But often the conversations I have it's not always about marketing. It's about all these other things. And so I talk about it all day long, and I still have days, hours, times where I'm like, why do I feel like total crap? Mm-hmm. And the answer is always that I've gone off the path of who I am, and I've gotten distracted towards something other than but it happens to me too because it's a practice. Mm-hmm. So then I gotta, oh yeah, here we go. This is feeling better, and I get back on track. But
and I mean,
that's life.
It is life, and I think too, like, I have this orientation towards just wanting to do things right. So that can absolutely toy with my ability to stay true to myself, because if really smart people that I love and admire and appreciate and respect tell me that I could try something, then so that's why for me it's a constant practice, because I'm constantly going to be pulled outside or attracted outside of what I really should do. That's what you're saying, like staying on the path. There's almost always, you can point to the thing where you're like, oh, this is where I started to kind of depart from what's really good for me. But, this is going to be a lifelong thing, because that's what expansion looks like. And honestly, let's use a beautiful example, like expansion and contraction. that's what allows us to actually expand. So sometimes there's going to be those moments that don't feel like expansive at all. They feel you feel very much like you're shrinking. So to just like full disclosure, everybody, you will experience that, and it's totally normal. And it doesn't mean that it doesn't also mean that you're not expanding, right? That's a thing, right?
Right.
I just want to progress in the right way. While there is no exact perfect right way. We're each going to go through it on our own. And to welcome some of that too, right? Not resist all the tough stuff, because there's so much to learn from the periods of contraction in that whole process of getting better.
Totally. I think the contraction periods are where we learn the most.
Usually.
Obviously we don't want to be in contraction all the time.
Yeah.
A, that's going to suck. And B, you're not actually moving forward. So, but it's a balance. It's a both and.
Right.
And I think you hit on something really important there. When you are in the contraction phase, so you don't feel like you're progressing, you're kind of being, either you're holding yourself back or something else is holding you back, and you're just needing to bring it back in. That's one of the most important times where, unless you really pay attention to the story that your mind is playing about or saying about this contraction, unless you're really, really careful, that's when you can spiral out of control. Expansion feels great and you feel like you're doing everything right. And contraction is also really important, that coming back in and evaluating, recalibrating things, so you can again kind of be, I like the bow analogy, like the pulling back of the bow. It's all that you're gathering that potential energy. You've got so much potential energy back here, and you go flying forward. Right. And then for that arrow to be helpful again, guess what? You got to pull it back again. Right. I love that. I love that analogy. And that's pulling a great back, analogy. There's a lot of tension. There's a lot of, you guys are bow hunters. Yeah. Like there's a lot of tension in that pulling back and a lot of freedom when you let it go. But that tension is so necessary. And you just got to watch your mind. You just got to watch what you're saying about what that tension means. Because you can tell yourself, and you can believe that it's totally necessary. And while it's not totally comfortable, it's hard, it maybe kind of hurts your shoulder a little bit because you got to do some more back, whatever. But it's totally necessary. You can be in it and get a lot of good juice from that. Or you can be like, well, this frickin' sucks. I just want to fly. I just want to go forward. What is this stuff? I don't want to be pulled back. So you have the ability to tell a positive story about that or a negative one. And it's totally your choice.
Right. Because I think the thing for me that I've really learned in the last year is to allow for that tension and allow for those almost opposing thoughts to exist at the same time, the both ands. Right? Like, gosh, this feels really hard, and I know it makes me better. Or, gosh, this feels so crappy right now, and I know that it will pass. Just that's the spin that I have felt more capable. Like, because I can't just. So a friend of mine once used the phrase polish a turd, which is really funny to me. Like, I can't, if I'm feeling that much negativity, I can't just like shine it right up and pretend it's not there, because that doesn't feel resonant. But I am able to say, use an and bridge it to something to help me remember that there's value in the pain of it. Right? Because that's exactly what it is. It's required. You can't get arrows to fly without the backward tension. I love that analogy. I've never heard that analogy, Britt. You taught me something new today.
Well, cool. Very cool. Yeah, I think you and I have talked about that expansion and contraction as it relates to, I'll go to a business conference or I'll travel somewhere, which feels really expansive. And then I come home and I can start to kind of feel, like a weight on my chest of like, oh, I'm getting smaller again. Like I feel so big and expansive and like I'm living my purpose when I go and I speak on a stage or just go hang out with you guys in person, my mastermind group, or go to a conference, whatever, just living it up, right? Living this big life. And then when I come home to my small little town and the airport is an hour and a half away, and I drive home, and the lanes in the road get narrower, and eventually I get onto dirt roads to come home, and it's just like everything, the people go away, and as I come home, I feel like I get smaller. And that is one of the most fertile places, and I can either choose to throw rocks into that ground, or I can throw seeds into that ground. Right. Really. And it's so hard. Like, it's so hard for me because it's so visceral. Like, I feel that contraction so hard, but I can still choose to say, hey, these are where my roots can be. This is your place. Everything's going to go quiet now. And that's not a bad thing. Everything's going to go quiet. People are going to leave you alone. Nobody's going to care what you're doing in your little home office with fields all around you. Right. And you can just, this can be a very sacred place. And then you're going to recharge and you're going to be able to go again. You know, that has taken a lot of practice, because I would say, like at least for the last 3 to 5 years, anytime I traveled and I came home, it was a mess. I would just let my mind say all these things about like, I have all this potential and I'm not able to use it. And that was just total BS. Now it's that window where I can plant some seeds of like, no, this is perfect. Right. This gives you the space to actually put some things into action, and you can go again.
This is such an important example, because I think, again, I think a lot of the kind of conventional wisdom around growth, you know, like how do you grow, is that you move on from things that don't serve you. Right? So like, respect yourself enough to walk away from the things that no longer serve you, honor you, or help you grow. It's an actual phrase, right? I don't know who said that quote. I think it's just a random old meme on Facebook or something, Instagram. But the whole thing is like, sometimes I think the trigger, like pulling the trigger to leave something, I sometimes think we pull that way too quickly. So like, if you didn't take the time to sit and really feel through that contraction, I feel that every time I leave. But now, I will say in the last couple of years, it feels like a coming home to me. I still have that decompression where I feel like it does feel like everything is shrinking, but there's an ease that accompanies it too. So like you said, it's this conscious choice to say, what can I do with this feeling, and how do I reframe this feeling so it doesn't feel like a bad thing? And I think too many people are like, if you feel like that, then, oh my gosh, you just need to leave. Like, leave your small town, leave your job, leave the whatever the thing is that's creating that feeling. And that's not always necessarily true. Like it's about working through those feelings and reframing it. And I think that is such an important one, because for anybody that travels a lot, or, especially if they do it for work. And I think too, like, we're in this weird space where we work at home and we do things that people don't get. Right? Like the people right around you maybe don't get it. And so, so then it always is that feeling of just like, and my other speaker friend calls it the re-entry program. Like, oh, yep, we're re-entering now. And it is very hard to just like get back into the flow of feeling like yourself. But I love that example. I love that analogy. And I think it's identifying those moments for each of us that is most likely to make us feel small, insignificant, not good enough, not important enough, not valuable enough, and then start to unpack them. And so giving ourselves moments for reflection is really important. Slowing down and actually asking good questions.
Yeah, totally. There's another phrase that my sassy inner voice likes to say when I throw rocks into that fertile ground, and I'm like, I could say something really positive, but I'm choosing to say, oh, well, this just sucks. Like I feel I feel so small now, and whatever. And my sassy inner voice likes to say, well, do something about it then.
Yeah.
And in this scenario, the coming home, I realized after asking that question enough, like, well, do something about it. What are you going to do about it then? You know, because I'm a doer. So it's a great question. And my inner voice is super wise. And, and I'm like, well, actually what I can do about it is think better thoughts about it, because I'm not going to move. I don't want to move. In reality, I don't want to move. I don't want to live anywhere other than here. I don't actually want to live and in a city. I don't actually want to travel all the time.
Right.
So that's what makes me realize, oh, what I can do about this problem is change my thoughts around it. Now, in another example, like when I kept being really not comfortable in my job and feeling like this just is not where I need to be.
Mm-hmm.
And I could have changed my thoughts around it, but I was choosing to throw rocks in it. And I'm just like, this is not working. And so my inner voice would be like, well, what are you going to do about it then? You know? And the answer to that was, I got to leave. I do have to leave.
Right.
Like that was, so it's like, again, back to like the both and knowing yourself, which just came totally full circle, right? Like knowing yourself enough to answer those questions properly. And, then stepping out boldly, stepping out in a moment of courage to do what you know is best for you.
For you. Right. Mm-hmm. Amen, Brit. Amen.
Yeah.
So like,
girl, I could talk to you all stinking day.
Oh yeah, back at ya. It's just, that's why I've said so many times. I'm like, one time somebody said to me, you talk about kind of challenging things on your talk show, almost like, could you just make it lighter or something, which made me laugh. I was like, yeah, well, yeah, I would call it the small town small talk show if we didn't talk about things that I felt like they mattered, you know? Like, this is big talk because we're talking about things that are hard. Come on, people, like, get on board, folks. Exactly. Like, it's good. Yeah, it's good. Yeah. So, okay, so I'm going to ask you, this is kind of hard because I didn't like prep you for this. I don't prep people. We just have fun conversations. If you could give one thing, like of all the things we've talked about, because I do think you're right that conceptually what we're talking about, it's a big topic. And yet it's like, it's the core of everything for people. Like it infiltrates every part. You know, so I always say to women, like, here we are, right? We're in the middle. We're a mother here. We're a wife here. We're a community member. We have our job. We have our church. We have, you know, all the things that you're involved in. And those are all roles that you play, right? But you are not just a sum of your roles. You are a woman standing and living in the center of all of that, right? So we spend a lot of time trying to be a better mom or a better entrepreneur, but, you know, we invest all of our time and our money, and ultimately it's this coming back to yourself in the middle. That's what will impact all of these things positively, right? So given that, thinking about that, is there one thing that you would say, if you don't know where to start here? I mean, we've given little things along the way, but like the one starting point, do you think you can come up with what you would suggest?
Yeah, definitely. Okay. I get variations of this question, and everybody wants me to say, go take a personality test because, you know, I do marketing personalities, but that's not my answer. I don't want you to start there. Where I would encourage you to start is, go make a cup of coffee or tea, something that warms you. Find your safest place in the house, in your house, in your home. If your safest place is not in your home, just go wherever that place is, right? And I have a little comfy brown chair back here, and it's just my safe space. If I am there, I'm good. And so go there. If you like to journal things out, take a notebook. If not, if you just want to think through it, totally fine. I want you to imagine all those roles that Rebecca just listed off, and all the things that you see around you in your safe space. If that wasn't actually there, if that wasn't a part of your identity, what would you still choose to do? Who would you still choose to show up as? What kinds of decisions would you still make? What would you eat? What would you read? What would you listen to on the radio? Start in those types of questions, start to tap into who you really are without the external influences that you currently have on those choices. This is the practice again. This is very much a practice. And especially as women, our roles, our phases of life, our seasons, they're changing all the time.
Right.
So our identities can change along with those if we're not careful. But give yourself that space. Get yourself in a safe space with a warm drink and ask yourself those questions and just see what comes up. You might write 4 pages of stuff. You might write 4 lines of stuff. Just see what comes up from that experience. That's your first step to start tapping into her, because she's in there. See what happens.
I love it. Brit, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me, Rebecca.
You're going to bless so many people with your words today. I can't wait to hear people's feedback. You're one of my faves.
I'm so glad. I'm excited to hear. I definitely am excited to hear what comes up and all the things. The resistance things, the hell yes, the whatever, all of it. This is the real work, this is the light, this is the real work on earth here in life. And so let's do it together, right? Let's have conversations about it. Let's do it and talk about it and see where we go. It's so good. Thank you for having me, Rebecca. Yeah. I'm really honored.
You're the best. Like me, you returned to your hometown. Maybe it was 2 years later, maybe it was 6 months later, maybe it's been decades later. But no matter what, you're considered a boomerang. You're somebody that left and came back. And with that comes all the feelings of uncertainty about, will they accept me as who I am now? Are they going to get that I'm a grown person? It's quite tricky. And so I've created a small town survival kit just for you in mind as a returner. Check it out. It is bound to make you feel less lonely, less isolated, and not as crazy as you feel like you are.